Don't visit Jamaica without watching this video first. Now, I've done tours over several years for persons who have come from North America, Europe, Asia, and other Caribbean islands. And along the way, we have had a lot of discussions in terms of what is it that they want to get the most out of Jamaica. And so I've compiled some tips and some secrets that I'm going to share with you in terms of how you can make the most out of your visit to Jamaica and what are the things that you should take into consideration before coming to Jamaica. Now I'm going to talk about the travel advisory that was issued in terms of safety and crime and things like that. And if you want to get right to that segment, just go into the description and I'll put the chapter area where you can look at it. But I'm going to address some other issues first, all right?
Kareem's Quest. Travel different from the rest. You're watching Kareem's Quest. Always an adventure when you're watching Kareem's Quest.
So the first thing is this. If you are a first-time visitor, go to an all-inclusive hotel. These hotels are always situated in the safest tourist areas. And that's Montego Bay, Ocho Rios, and Negril. So we actually have three tourist-centric areas. These are areas that are always heavily policed. Even like in Negril, which has a lovely 7 Mile beach. And you can go to my website and read up more about it. Police are there on horses, police are there on dune bugs, things like that. All right. So I've always told persons, if you're coming, don't just try to immerse yourself into the culture. Try to go about it, in a way that you are going into some familiar areas. And a lot of these hotels, they also try to involve some aspect of the culture in your entertainment or, just in just like a specific night. Keep in mind that some hotels here are Eurocentric, like Rio and some of the Spanish hotels, meaning that the layout of the property is really just, influenced by Europe, right? So you're not going to see necessarily a layout that is tropical, all right? And if that's something that doesn't bother you, then that's okay, right? So keep those things in mind. These places, again, I can't emphasize it enough. There isn't a high crime rate in any of these places. Of course, I don't tell persons to be naive either. You can't just go in a hotel and leave your bag or leave your stuff just on the floor or anything like that. And if you want some more tips in terms of like just which hotel to choose, I did a top 5 list in terms of my top 5 hotels, all-inclusive hotels. I also prefer all-inclusive hotels because you're paying one fee and then you are getting a chance to experience the property, as opposed to just paying in a European style hotel where you pay as you go. When you pay one fee, with the exception of motorized sports, all these hotels will give you most of the amenities that are available, except for like things like spa and things like motorized sports. All right, so you will have to pay extra for those, but everything else is there for you. And everything else is there for you to enjoy and things like that. And it's the easiest way to kind of go into the culture. Now, persons may say, well, how do I find these things? Just go on their websites, and you can go on social media as well. I did one on Rio, on not Rio. Well, I did a review on Rio, but actually did a video review on Royalton. And if you look ahead, you can actually just click that link and watch that video review. But there are countless of these reviews there. Something that I recognize even when I'm doing tours with persons, sometimes people, will say that they're disappointed with a particular hotel. And I always encourage persons to do your research first. If you do your research first, you'll have some type of frame of mind in terms of what hotel suits you best. Some hotels, like, for example, Jewel Hotel, they have a more localized ambiance. And so if that's what you're looking for, then that hotel might suit you best. So do your research, and try to get as much information and meaningful information as possible. The next thing that I really want you to know is the rates. So persons always ask, how can I get the best rates? All right, the first one is quite easy because it's a principle that applies to every country. Book in advance. If you book in advance, you'll definitely get the best rates. But let's say you're not booking in advance. Let's say you're trying to book just a couple of months or a couple of weeks before. What is the best time period? All right, the first thing I tell persons, avoid the busy season, which is our winter season. So from October to about September, the rates are pretty high because everybody's leaving from those cold countries like North America to come and get some of our tropical breeze. So avoid that type of period if you're concerned about rates. All right, you can stay with things like probably April or September. Those are kind of some good months. And even if you're coming in the summer, like we have this, what you call it, this reggae festival, Sumfest in the summer. And sometimes a lot of the Montego Bay hotels are booked out during that period. So you also want to pay attention to when there are a lot of famous festivals that are taking place. So far, I mean, it's really kind of like two festivals. You know, you have Rebel Salute and you have Sumfest. And Sumfest is held in July. And once that is held, I mean, you know, you're going to have kind of a busy period. But outside of that, you should get good rates if you're going to be doing it just on the fly and saying, hey, let me just travel. You know, I just made up my mind and we just came up on some money or anything like that. And we just want to just come to Jamaica. My next tip is for the repeat visitors or the adventurous visitors. So you're going to have some persons who just want to go out there and they want an intimate experience of Jamaica. And usually when persons want an intimate experience of Jamaica, they're looking for three things. They're looking for the music, the culture, and the food. Now the music, of course, Bob Marley. All right, so a person's going to want to say, hey, how can I get, you know, to know where Bob Marley used to live when he was in Kingston? And, you know, there is a culture yard at his home in Kingston. If you ever hear the song No Woman No Cry, that's the culture yard that he's describing in that song. So that is something that it's off the beaten path. All right. And you definitely will need a tour guide for that one. And when you want a tour guide for these things, just do your research. You don't have to choose me. You don't have to choose, you know, anybody else who is telling you to choose them on social media. You can do your research, look for the website. And when you go to person's social media sites, look how engaging their posts are to make sure that they're very active in what they're doing. All right. When it pertains to the culture, you can go to just different places like Blue Hole in St. Mary. That's a famous spot by celebrity. When Cardi B was here, she went there. When Chris Brown was here, he went there as well. So these are some nice places in terms of they're off the beaten path. You're getting to interact with locals. However, you must do it with a tour guide. All right. So find a reputable tour guide. And then the next part is the food. Now, to be honest with you, when you go to a hotel, they're going to just cram you with jerk chicken, to be exact, or jerk pork. But mostly jerk chicken. You're going to get a lot of jerk chicken. But our cuisine spans way beyond jerk chicken. All right. You have curry goat and rice, white rice. You have potato pudding. You have saltfish fritters. You have different places, and you have places that you can stop. You have fried fish and bami, which is a lovely thing. I mean, a lot of persons do fish and chips, but we do fried fish and bami. And you have different places and different vendors that sell these things, and it's prepared in a traditional way. So the dish is done in a way that our foreparents would have done it. And so it really captures the essence of Jamaica in terms of from a palatable standpoint. Right now, the Jamaican to US dollar, and I'm just going to use US because US is so general. And, you know, if you come from Asia, you come from Europe, you probably still have an understanding of, you know, the exchange rate with regards to the US dollar. So one US dollar is valued 150 Jamaican dollars. That might be a little bit higher, you know, with time. And so you have to keep that in mind. So whenever you're watching this video, just know that, I mean, you know, use that as a marker. But I think I'm just going to do an article on this as well. And I'll share the article in the description of this video. So you can actually just click the links and see how you can get up-to-date rates, because that's something that persons always want to know. If you're traveling Jamaica, I'll tell persons, you know, change out and get some $1 bills and keep that also on you. Now, if you are this type of an adventurer, you're going to have to carry some cash, because some of these places, they don't have ATM machines and they don't have point of sale machines either. So keep that in mind if you're going off the beaten path. And that's why for my first point, I always told persons to try all-inclusive hotels first. But let's say you're going off the beaten path, give you an idea in terms of the cost of stuff. So a regular meal, a basic meal, can cost you probably 10 US. All right. And that's like breakfast. So a regular meal, you know, 10 US. The higher up you go, like lunch can be 15 US. And of course, dinner, the same concept applies, just like when you're in any other country. It just depends on how fancy your dinner can be. It can be as cheap as 20 US. It can be as high as 100 US. It depends on where you go. So keep those things in mind. As it pertains to transportation, let me just give you a general idea. So Montego Bay is where one of our airports are located, and it's our busiest airport. And chances are, if you're coming to Jamaica, you're coming into Montego Bay Sangsters International Airport. All right. So let's say you're coming at that airport and you want to go to one of our most popular attractions, which is Dunn's River Falls. All right. And that drive, you know, would probably cost you, if it's just two of you, it can run you from 160 US upwards, and that's for a round trip. If it's 6 persons or more, and the more persons, the cheaper the fare is. So if it's 6 persons or more, it can be like 45 US and upwards per person. So keep those things in mind as well. I mean, some of the principles that apply to other countries apply here. And you have various tour companies and tour bus companies as well. I mean, you can just type that in and you'll see registered websites, and you look at the authenticity of the website. And if you can do a little research online as well, you can actually find more information. For those persons who actually know persons in Jamaica and would have come to Jamaica already, they would have had relationships with various transportators. So they would have had their own persons that they can call and say, hey, I'm coming in at this time. Can you pick me up and can you drop us to X, Y, or Z? All right. So you keep that in mind in terms of if you are the adventure type person and you want to travel off the beaten path, you want to make sure that you have your transportation intact, you have your understanding of currency intact. And a lot of times when you come to these places too, especially for the persons who want to veer away from the commercialized tourist spots, when you go to these places, you're going to have to, pay a person something, not really anything much, but people going to be telling you about the culture and stuff like that. You can tip a person, $5, and I mean that's a respectable enough tip in terms of depending on how much information the person gives you. Of course, the more the person assists you and the more information the person gives you, the higher it goes. So it normally starts from $5 upwards. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the travel advisory. Now, to be fair, crime is actually down in our country by about 20% when compared to the same period last year. All right. And though it is present, it usually happens in concentrated areas that are outside of tourist zones. So in a tourist zone, I mean, there are just so many police patrolling the area that it rarely occurs in that area unless that tourist is doing something like supremely naive. I mean, I really know of instances where that occurs. I mean, and I'm not saying that it is perfect, it's not perfect, but it is no state for alarm. I mean, our crime figures are down. Again, I write an article on this, and the police have released it, and you can just go in the description section and click on the article and just read it and get your own updates. But I mean, it's nothing for anybody who is visiting us to be concerned about. So proceed with caution. I mean, if you're on site, you don't leave your valuables, anywhere, because other tourists can actually take your stuff as well, right? So I mean, you don't operate in a naive manner. And if you're going out, you go out in terms of you have guided tours and things like that. And if they're going to take you to places outside of the tourist zones, I mean, once you go with a reputable tour company, you'll be all right. I mean, it's not anything to create any alarm about. As I said earlier, the rate is actually down. So, I mean, and it's outside of the tourist zone. So it depends on, where you're staying in terms of, all tourist zones are usually very low with regards to crime. And again, remember, we have 3 major tourist zones. So you're looking at Ocho Rios, you're looking at Montego Bay, and you're looking at Negril. All right. I write on a lot of these things on my website, kareemsquest.com. I write a lot of reviews on my website as well for various spots, known and unknown to many. So, I mean, you can also check those out. And there are other review places too that you can also check out in terms of just getting as much information as possible. That's one of the things that I always encourage all persons who are visiting. Get as much information as possible so you can get the most out of our culture. We have an extremely colorful culture. We have Marcus Garvey, who is a philosopher who has influenced the minds of so many persons across the world. We have the world's fastest human being, Usain Bolt. We have Bob Marley, one of the world's most influential musicians. So there's just so many things about Jamaica, and that's just the surface. I mean, it gets much deeper, and you can have a more fulfilling experience depending on who you use as your tour guide, because you want to make sure that this experience counts. And I always tell persons, if you come to Jamaica once, you're going to want to come to Jamaica again. So those are the points. If you want me to address anything else, just put them in the comment section. If I see that a comment comes up more than once, I'll look into it in terms of doing a video on it. And just continue to keep yourself informed. All right. Look out for the various newspapers. We have 2 major newspapers in this country, so you can look out for them and keep yourself abreast of the news. All right.